Hello everyone, welcome once again to the powerful, majestic comic book vault. Today on the vault, we're going to take a look at another Superman Elseworlds story that shows Superman once again being raised by somebody else in a way that we're not used to seeing him on some other dimension. And, we've seen Superman raised as Batman. We've seen Superman raised by the Soviet Union. A couple years ago, we even saw Superman raised by his Kryptonian birth parents on Earth after they all came in a rocket ship. But today, we're going to see Superman raised by Darkseid in a book called Superman The Dark Side. This is a 3-issue miniseries that was published in 1998. It's written and drawn by John Francis Moore and Kieran Dwyer. I thought the credits on this book were interesting. I haven't seen this before, where you've got two people. Usually you'd think one is the writer and the other is the artist, but both are credited for the art and the story. It says John Francis Moore, Kieran Dwyer, words, story, and pictures, and then inked by Hilary Barda. And I just think that's really interesting. So it's impossible to know who's drawing where if they're both drawing this. I think that's a really cool way to do it. And I really like the art in this book. I think that it's definitely paying wonderful homage to Jack Kirby's work on New Gods, and it's definitely contemporary and it's definitely very 90s, but it also definitely has a lot of appreciation and respect for that book. So basically what we have here is Superman sent to Earth like normal. Kal-El is a baby in a rocket ship sent by his birth parents to Earth when the planet Krypton explodes. The difference this time is that just before he gets to Earth, Darkseid boom tubes him away to Apocalypse to raise him as his own son so that he can bring him up and use him to destroy the planet of New Genesis. If you don't know anything about New Gods, and I've not read a whole lot, but I know a little bit, this is very faithful to what New Gods always was and what that mythology and that history is. And, you've got these two planets, Apocalypse and New Genesis, that used to be one. At one point, bazillions of years ago, something crazy happened. Now they're two, and they're kind of foils for heaven and hell. So Apocalypse is this horrible place that you don't want to live in because everybody's ruled by fear and under terror, and you just live to eventually die for Darkseid. Whereas on the other side, of course, you have New Genesis, which is ruled by the benevolent Highfather, who of course is quite a bit like Odin from Thor. And this, of course, actually has quite a few parallels with Thor, with the sons being raised by people that weren't their birth fathers, and they're either evil and raised by good people, or were born of good people but raised by evil people. And we have kind of the switch going on here, which I'll talk about in a second. But with New Genesis, it's kind of a foil for heaven, where it's basically utopia. They're basically pacifists. They only fight when they have to, and everybody lives, happily, and they have plenty to eat and all that kind of thing, and they, live in fun cities in the sky. And Superman is brought up by Darkseid and then goes to New Genesis and successfully destroys it. Yeah, he blows up New Genesis in this. And so the Highfather sends everybody that's left over from New Genesis to Earth. And Earth is supposedly where the anti-life equation is hidden, which Darkseid is always after. And I really enjoyed how this book basically just took all of the big important ideas from New Gods and just built kind of this 3-part epic out of the whole thing and gave it a beginning and a middle and an end. Sometimes I don't like books like this that feel the need to, Elseworlds. I love Elseworlds stories, but sometimes I don't like it when they feel the need to kind of like cap off everything at the end, where because you're only going to get a couple 3 issues or whatever it is in this world, you've got to see the definitive ending of it by the end. And sometimes I want to just see kind of a personal journey within a world rather than just concept. Luckily, this is good enough that I'm rolling with it and I'm kind of fine with it. It maybe ends a little bit too easy, like some of these other ones do, but I don't know. I enjoy it on the level of big, giant, kind of epic. It's not a real character-driven story, and because of what it is, you don't really expect it to be, so it kind of gets a pass from me on that. So basically, Highfather, before he dies, has this kind of prophecy. And, I'm not a big fan of prophecies, but I also like how this prophecy might just kind of be a wise saying. The prophecy is the creator, war will end when the creator, or when the destroyer becomes the creator. And I like that as a prophecy, because isn't that kind of always true, like most really evil dictatorships seem to eventually be overthrown. Naturally, kind of the big moral of this story is that societies can't function forever. It's insustainable to have a society that's ruled completely over fear, out of fear and terror, and that eventually people have to be allowed to be free, or they're going to take over your society. And that's precisely what we're given here. And it's like, it doesn't matter how powerful they are, eventually somebody more powerful will come along and stop you, or will have the smarts to stop you. Now, one thing that I didn't love about this is that is that Superman, in his decision ultimately to become benevolent and to go up against Darkseid, there is a bit of a question, and the book tries really hard to make it work. There is a bit of a question about whether or not he does it completely through his own gumption, or whether it's done because of a mother box. And of course, the characters from New Genesis have these things called a mother box, which does a number of neat things for them. One of them is that it deflects the anti-life equation once Darkseid manages to get it, but it also seems to have something to do with how they view the world. Now, it's not mind control, but it seems like it just kind of helps them see more clearly. It's kind of a sticky thing, because you want your characters to have complete 100% free will, especially when the story is about free will versus being ruled through terror, and yet a mother box is the thing that kind of allows Superman to see what the Earth has to offer over what Darkseid has to offer, and why Darkseid's way is not the right way. And the book kind of over and over again, and Superman keeps saying this, feels the need to keep going. Well, it's not just the mother box. The mother box was helpful, but it was more just that Superman looked at the Earth and saw, and specifically America. I think it makes kind of a big deal out of America is the land of the free. And Superman looks at the world around him and sees that these people are so much happier, and sees all the wanton destruction that he's caused, versus the way people get to live here. And I didn't feel like the mother box was really necessary, especially because there are a lot of other characters that by the end, when Superman starts leading an army up against Darkseid, have also turned it against Darkseid. Nobody likes Darkseid. Nobody really, until they become completely twisted by living under his rule for too long, like characters like Granny Goodness or Calabac, people like that. By and large, a lot of his subservients don't want to be his subservients. They don't really buy into this idea of, we just live to die for Darkseid, and yet they're forced into this servitude because nobody can match Darkseid. So what are you going to do? They're stuck. And so because you have characters from Apocalypse that turn against Darkseid at the end, not the least of which being all of his like little monstrous minions that you thought were animals and turned out to be thinking people, which I thought was really cool, by the way. You've got all these characters that turn against him, and Superman is just one of them. And also, he's not really the first one either. So I'm not entirely sure that Superman is the character here that's getting that's like changing everybody's hearts and minds to go up against Darkseid. I think he helps, but I don't think it's just okay. He's this big symbol where he leads by example, and he gets everybody to go with him. That's my other complaint about it, is that Superman does kind of beat Darkseid by brute force in this, and I do appreciate that even with the Yellow Sun on Earth, and of course he doesn't have powers when he's on Apocalypse. It does somewhat beg the question as to why him being Kryptonian is that big of a deal to Darkseid until he realizes that the anti-life equation is actually inside of Superman and not on Earth. That was kind of interesting, but it does kind of beg the question as to why he raises Superman to be his, son to go destroy New Genesis, considering that it's a suit at that point that gives him his abilities. So anyway, when he, of course, when he's on Earth, he's got his powers, but it's still not enough to match Darkseid. Excuse me, like always. And so he ends up getting what I think is a really convenient power boost from Orion, who gets the power chair from Metron when Metron gets killed by Darkseid for double-crossing him. There's a whole lot of that kind of soap opera and politics going on that I won't get into. But anyway, eventually Orion gets Metron's chair, and he goes to like the center of the universe and gets to like see the nature of the universe, and it gives him these incredible powers, and he passes that on to Superman and kind of uses this light. They make a really big deal out of light versus dark, of course. It's a bit heavy-handed, but again, it fits this material. And so he touches Superman, and he realizes, oh, Superman gets his gifts from the sun, so I'm going to give him, a solar boost. And he does that, and then Superman is able to defeat Darkseid. Like always, I much would have preferred Superman to have beaten Darkseid, not just on brute strength or just straight up power, but somehow maybe, he would need some brute power, don't get me wrong, but, mix that with a little bit of intellect. So I don't know, I didn't love that. I did like, however, that there weren't nearly as many plot conveniences as I might have expected with this. I really liked that by and large, the only thing that has changed that makes this universe so different from the regular DC universe is that Superman gets picked up by Darkseid and gets raised by him. That's the big thing. And then everything else is pretty much the same. So I really like that when he goes to Earth, it's pretty much the Earth that we know, except that there's a lot of mentions of Superman, of regular supervillains within the Superman universe that have been dispatched by other characters because Superman hasn't been around. I thought that was a really smart decision to have in there, and mostly it seems like the big saviors of Metropolis have been Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer, and I really liked that they're in there and that they're mentioned as having stopped characters like Toyman and the High Evolutionary and people like that. Bibbo is in this, and this is one of those stories that I think you probably would appreciate much more if you were reading 90s Superman comics. I think at the very least, if you went and read Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman, you'd probably like this book more than maybe if you were to read it right now, because Bibbo was a big character in that, this kind of street bum turned like a barkeep who used to just be kind of this pathetic homeless guy that picked fights with people, who was saved by Superman, and that inspired him to help people and to be an entrepreneur and to give people work and that sort of thing. And we've got that kind of Bibbo here, and I really like this scene where he's introduced in this, where he actually talks down the currently kind of half evil Superman. And Superman's never really evil in this. It's just that he was raised by Darkseid and doesn't know anything else. And there is a little bit of a nature versus nurture argument going on here, where it's like you can just go against your parenting, but also against your kind of genetic programming to do anything you want to if you really want to. And that's kind of a lot of what the moral of the story is, because you have the sense in this, and maybe this is another thing that's changed, although it's hard to tell if it's just Darkseid manipulating images or if this is actually supposed to be true in this. You do have this point where it's questionable as to whether or not Kal-El's parents were any better than Darkseid, because he shows Kal-El this hologram of Jor-El telling him that he's supposed to conquer Earth, kind of a la second season Smallville. And I found myself kind of wondering, did Darkseid just plant that, or did that actually was that actually what he was supposed to do? And is it completely kind of an anti-nurture argument where it's like you know, he can it's just kind of, you know, in his chemical makeup to be this, and also his upbringing made him this, but there's still something else in him that prevents him, you know, from wanting to be this terrible ruler. And overall, I really, really enjoyed this. There's some really fun bits that I didn't expect, especially with Lex. There's this part where you think Lex is going to maybe be the big secondary bad guy in this, where when the new gods come to Earth, he starts to work with them, and he's adapting some of their technologies, and ultimately his goal is to actually double-cross them and work with Darkseid, and he kind of wants to be the Earth version of Darkseid, and that gets quelched really quick. Darkseid could care less about him, and when Darkseid comes to Earth and Lex tries to work with him, he blasts him, and for a minute you think that he blasts him with his Omega beams, and you think for a minute that Lex has just been disintegrated, and it turns out that he sent him to Apocalypse to be Granny Goodness's plaything, which is both hilarious and kind of twisted all at the same time. There's especially this one panel toward the end of the book where you see him kind of bound and gagged and like crawling around, and yeah, it's that was a little much, but it was also kind of funny. Also, just visually, this is a really, really fun read. Probably my favorite panel is Superman throwing Darkseid through the Daily Planet globe. That's just big, epic, awesome stuff. The whole point of the anti-life equation, of course, is that it allows Darkseid to just completely manipulate people's minds and control them and get them to do anything he wants them to. And that's the reason that he's after it. And, you know, I haven't read enough stuff with Darkseid, so I was puzzled about what exactly the anti-life equation was, so it's kind of nice to get that if that's indeed what it is. So anyway, I think this is a really, really fun read. Of course, like always, I kind of spoiled this for you and gave you a lot of information so that if you don't get a chance to read this, you know what happened in it. But I still think it's a really fun read and worth taking a look at. I also really like where Superman's left at the end of this, where he's rebuilding Apocalypse, and kind of that prophecy gets fulfilled, but it's I don't know, it's a really kind of satisfying conclusion. So anyway, that's why I was going to mention that. There's this great line at the end where Superman is called Apocalypse's greatest farmer, and I thought that was a really nice touch for Superman. Well, thanks a lot for watching the Comic Book Vault, and hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you'd ever like to send me to review in the Vault, you can always send things to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.